Hello, I'm CBS 11's Brooke Katz. Tax season is here. The IRS accepting income tax returns right now, and it's also the time that criminals try to take advantage of taxpayers. So let's talk to the experts to help you during this time of year. Christopher Altimus Jr. is the IRS Criminal Investigation Special Agent in charge for the Dallas Field Office, and Valina McCrae is an IRS Communications Senior Stakeholder Liaison. Thank you guys both for being here. You know, this is such an important topic, and Christopher, I want to start with you. You are the special agent in charge of the Dallas Field Office, and you've probably seen it all before, but what are some of the most common things that you have seen in terms of taxpayers who fall victim to fraud?
Oh, sure. Well, first, I want to thank you for having this conversation with us today. It's not often that we get to talk about fraud prevention. A lot of times in our line of work, we're called in after a crime has been committed, and we're talking to victims, and a lot of times that's not very beneficial to them after they've already been victimized. So big thing that we see quite often right now during this season are a number of scams that involve text messaging, emails, and of course those phone calls that individuals are receiving threatening either their impact to their job, their accounts being frozen, and even worse sometimes criminal prosecution and arrest.
And, I think tax season always instills a little bit of fear in everybody. And one of the things that people feel more comfortable doing is getting a preparer, somebody to help them with their taxes. So what are the warning signs that you can look out for in terms of if somebody is maybe a little suspect in that regard?
Sure. So one of the things that IRS Criminal Investigation does every year is we post a list of top 10 tips to American public to look out for certain fraud schemes. One thing that we tell folks is make sure you do your due diligence with selecting a preparer, making sure that they're available all year round is important as well. One thing that I would say I would add to that is as well, on top of our top 10 list, is make sure that you are asking that preparer to review the return with you. I think that's really key. You'd be surprised how often when we talk to victims, they're not exactly sure what those numbers are on that return. They get really excited about a refund amount, and that's all they really focus on, and they don't really ask the preparer to explain the numbers. And you're paying those preparers money, right, to prepare that return for you, so make sure that you have them take the time and explain it to you.
So let's say you notice one of those red flags, then what's your best course of action? What should you do?
Right, so for sure don't allow them to transmit that return to us and submit that on your behalf, because ultimately you as a taxpayer are responsible for that return and responsible for that tax due and owing. And if you receive a refund that you're not entitled to, on top of that, a lot of times there's interest and penalties goes along with it. And in certain schemes, it may take a couple of years for us to uncover that fraud and ultimately have to track down those individuals. Even if we prosecute them criminally, the taxpayer is still going to be responsible for that financial loss.
Gosh, okay, I have to ask this one. This was a new term for me anyways. What is a ghost preparer?
Sure, so that should be one of the red flags, right? And that's an individual who's willing to prepare your return for you, but they're not willing to put their name or business on that return as that preparer. So that should certainly be a red flag if somebody's offering to prepare that return on your behalf and for you, but they won't put their name, their business and information on it as well.
So how do they find their victims? Are they more likely to come commit fraud, more likely to seek you out, or are they just kind of waiting for people to find them?
Quite often it's kind of a little bit of both. Sometimes they'll solicit folks, especially this time of year. You'll see a lot of solicitations out there for tax preparation assistance and help. And sometimes it's word of mouth. Again, folks aren't really maybe doing their due diligence. They see a big refund. They're excited about it. They talk to their friends and family. You want to go to this place because they're giving a large refund. And by and large, they're victims of fraud at that point.
Will the IRS actually call you if there's a problem?
So our primary mode of communication is still through the mail. In criminal investigation, we may reach out to you, especially if you're going to be a witness in one of these crimes. We may even come to your house and want to interview you about that. But we certainly don't call you and threaten you. I think that's the key with these schemes is that pressure, that fear that they're using, that most folks feel about the IRS to their advantage.
Right.
And so anybody that calls you and threatens you with some sort of criminal prosecution or money due or freezing your accounts, hang up the phone.
Yeah, but it is surprising sometimes how many people don't hang up the phone because I guess they're just that scared.
Yes. And that's very unfortunate. So at that point, make sure that you do ultimately report it if you are a victim of these frauds. I know sometimes it could be a little bit embarrassing. Some people feel like they're foolish, but they're really sophisticated. I mean, this is, in many ways, these individuals' full-time jobs. Yeah. So they've gotten really good at it. They can spoof numbers and make it seem like it's coming from a 202, which is a Washington, D.C. number. The emails and text messages are getting very sophisticated. They're able to, copy and paste over some of the official IRS logos and language to make it look official and real. And ultimately, that's not the case.
Yeah. And Valina, I want to bring you into the conversation here. The IRS, we know, has a program that can help certain people through the IRS homepage. Can you tell us a little bit about that program?
Sure. Are you talking about the free file program? Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. So for individuals who make less than $73,000, they can go to irs.gov, click on the free file logo, and it will take them to a page, and they can choose from a number of preparers and file their return electronically themselves.
So, and I know tax season is always hectic. What can taxpayers do? What do they need to know about this year specifically?
Well, they need to know, we've already started. We've opened. We are accepting tax returns, but they need to know they have a couple of extra days this year. The deadline is April 18th. Normally it's the 15th.
Not the 15th.
Yeah, so we have a couple of extra days because the 15th is on a Saturday, and then Washington, D.C. has a holiday, Emancipation Day, so that moves it to Tuesday, the 18th.
But you shouldn't wait till the last minute.
No, don't wait till the last minute. But if you should happen to wait till the last minute, you can ask for a 6-month extension to October 16th. But we also want people to remember that extension is only to file the tax return. You still have to pay by April 18th.
Yeah, and if you want a refund, you should want that money earlier, right?
Right,
Come on.
yes.
All right, Christopher, final thoughts just on tax season and for people in general as they get ready.
So protect yourself for sure. Make sure you're doing your due diligence. I highly recommend making sure that you review those returns with that preparer, whether it be somebody that you're paying, a lot of money for, a CPA, or even for having a neighbor or somebody in your family doing it for you. Just make sure you review that, because at the end of the day, again, you're ultimately responsible for what's on that return and what gets submitted to the IRS.
Yeah. And Valina, final thoughts?
Sure. The earned income tax credit, a lot of people miss out on it. We estimate about 20% of the people who qualify for that credit don't get it, but they just need to know things change during the year, job status, you may have a child, just different things. So they need to check and see if they qualify for the earned income tax credit.